Hi there.
My name's Christian Flem, and this video that you're about to watch serves as a tribute, I should say, to the late, great Mr. Mark Batson. I know he was a big part of your lives. He was a big part of my life, and many of my peers' lives. And I felt compelled to make this video because of the formative influence that, he had on me. This preface exists here, if only to tell you all that the interviews that you're about to see, were not conducted recently. And they weren't conducted specifically for this project. They were originally conducted for my Exemplar Scholars Math and Science showcase video. And I asked each teacher that I interviewed, or most of the teachers that I interviewed, about Mr. Batson. And there are so many of you all that I wish I could have talked to, but with the end of the year and with life,
It was not possible.
So here I present to you all a couple of thoughts and memories,
Just on display.
and maybe some other things that will remind you of Mr. Batson. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoy it.
Do some exercises, be quiet, stay in your seats, don't get on my last nerve. I'm old, I'm crotchety, and I will kill you.
What was it like the first day of school this year, knowing that he wasn't going to be here?
Lunch was lunch was terrible. Lunch has been terrible. It was terrible probably for the first semester, because you expected him to be there in the morning. He was always sitting in the same place doing a crossword puzzle in the morning, and he always beat me to school. So when you first go in, you put your lunchbox in there, you would expect him to be sitting there. And occasionally, considering that the election happened this year, it was a national election, I found oftentimes I think, well, I wonder what Mark would have thought of this, or what would he have to say about this. And occasionally, as all people have experienced that have lost someone close to them, you'll find yourself saying, I need to ask Batson about that. And then you realize, well, I can't ask Batson about that. That's probably happened 3 times to me this year.
Do I miss Mr. Batson? I do, very much. He and I actually came to Lexington Catholic at the same time, same year, so we've been here the same amount of time. It was very hard this year, walking in the building knowing he wasn't going to be here. You could say anything to him. He would joke. He had a joke. He had a story about everything. The students talk about his stories. We heard his stories too, and always great stories.
He was very much a sort of a father figure for the faculty. He sat in the same place at the end of the table every day at lunch, and as his daughter said, he held court there. He always had some sort of interesting story or anecdote that he would throw in there every day, and at least once a day would say something that would just get us all rolling on the floor laughing on a daily basis. Definitely a hard candy shell and a gooey inside for sure.
I will tell you the one memory I have of Mark Batson that is my most fond memory was on 9/11. And I had only been teaching a few years, but on 9/11, I was teaching a lot of freshmen, and we went down to what the students would still remember as the fish bowl, where a lot of the faculty members would eat down in the cafeteria. And he was in there, and so it's lunch. It's 11:45 on 9/11, and he told us, before we even heard on the news, exactly what had happened. He could tell us who the people were involved. He could give us the whole background of everything. And I remember that day being kind of a little in awe that he knew that much. And so after that day, so only a few years into my teaching, after that day, he was always my go-to for knowledge on the world and politics and history. But he instilled so much into these kids, into their love of learning, and through his stories and through just his vast knowledge of nearly everything.
Mr. Batson was a fun man. A couple times I went to Winchell's there, and the only person I ever saw drink a beer and Bloody Mary. I just don't know how that works. Interesting to talk to. Always living the dream. A nice person. He has, you know, I've only met his daughter Darcy. Very nice. Really like her wonderful daughter. And he did like the kids. And it was wonderful to see the outpouring of love for him.
I had a, you know, I had an opportunity one time just to go out to dinner with him before one of our various evening activities here, and it was, you're just spending time just me and him talking. He was a brilliant conversationalist. I really got a kick out of him.
When I asked Miss Roberts about him, she said she didn't know him very well, but he was the only person she'd ever seen who could down a beer and a Bloody Mary at the same time.
I'll validate that.
What was Mr. Batson like? Well, you asked the question why I do this. When I first got here, we had I don't know if you guys have ever gone to the banquet, the awards banquet at the end of the year, the academic awards. The first year I was here, we have to go. It's nice, but we have to go. And Batson was there, and a parent got up and just sung their praises about Batson and how great he was. And then another parent got up and said the same thing. And then teachers were getting up saying how cool Batson was. And that was the guy who I wanted to be like. I wanted to be like Batson. So Batson was kind of like I don't know if you call him a grandfather. One of your questions was, do I feel like a cool uncle or a dirty grandpa? Batson was like the combination of both of those. And as he got older, he became more of a dirty grandpa. But Batson was he was something else. He was a big part of the school, a big part of a lot of people's lives. And Batson was pretty cool.
What was he like in the lounge?
Batson, well, I'll be honest, what was Batson like in the lounge? Not that much different than in the class, except he used more colorful words. That's about it. He had stories upon stories. He was the most curious, one of the most curious guys I've ever known. And he was one of the most curious older folks I've ever known. Once you, in my experience anyway, once you reach a certain age, it's, you know, a lot of folks just aren't curious anymore. They're kind of stuck in their ways. Batson was on top of everything. He knew what was going on. He knew every conspiracy theory, and he was really fun to talk to. And he was one of the funniest guys I think I've ever met.
Told a great story about going along. He did a ride, what's it called, a ride along with a friend of his that was a policeman. I think I will say it's in San Francisco. Maybe it was somewhere else, and they had to go respond to what was about to be an erupting gang fight. And they were the only people that showed up, just him and his friend, and they had to stand there between two gangs and defuse the situation. You know, and he said he really thought there were a lot of stories that he told where in the middle of the story he would make it clear that he thought he might not live another moment past that moment in the story, and that was one of them, which was really compelling.
Why do you think Mr. Batson did it for so long?
I think he also enjoyed, I think he had a lot of stories to tell, and I think he enjoyed telling them. And I think that he felt like he had a lot of perspectives to pass on, for sure.
We're going to have a wonderful day today, and we're going to make money fun.
Sunshine.